So now we're going to be looking at work, and work is a measure of energy, okay? So the first thing we want to notice is that work is always in the direction of motion. So what do I mean by that? So let's look at the equation, okay? So work equals force times distance times cosine theta, okay? So the cosine theta is very, very important because what does that mean? What we're looking at is F times cosine theta is right here, okay? So work, if we're moving an object in this direction, right? F cosine theta is the force in the direction of motion. So that's why I meant that work is always in the direction of motion. We're only taking into account this force that's in the direction of our motion. And so that's why our final work is not just F times D, because that would be this force times this distance, but rather it's F cosine theta times the distance, okay? So we always have to take into account what angle this force is applied at, okay? So that force is applied at that angle theta, and remember with our triangles, this horizontal would be the force times cosine theta, okay? So now if we're dealing with perpendicular forces, what would that entail? Okay, so let's just plug it into our equation. Work equals force times distance times cosine theta. Okay, so a perpendicular force, what would our angle be? Okay, so our angle would be 90 degrees. So cosine of 90 times distance times force. So we're assuming that the object is moving to the right horizontally, and the force is perpendicular to that direction. Okay, so what is cosine 90? Remember, cosine 90 is 0. Okay, so the total work is going to be 0. So perpendicular forces have a work that is 0. So what would an example of this perpendicular force be? That would be something like a normal force. And we contrast that to something like a gravitational force that is pushing something down. So if we're moving in the horizontal, gravity and normal force will have a work of 0. So a very basic example of this would be a 10 kilogram block is pushed with the horizontal force of 100 newtons. It slides 10 meters. What is the work exerted? Right? So the first thing we want to always do with physics problems is draw a picture. Right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw this 10 kilogram block. So that's a 10 kilogram block is pushed with the horizontal force of 100 newtons. Okay? So it's pushed with the horizontal force of 100 newtons and it slides 10 meters. Right? Remember, always what we need to do is just write down our equation. What is our equation? So we know that the angle theta is going to be 0. Right? It's going to be 0 because it's in the force is in the same direction as the direction. Right? Remember, this theta is always the angle between the force exerted and the distance that we are actually moving. Right? So cosine theta is cosine 0 times our distance of 10 times our force of 100. So work equals 1,000 times cosine of 0. Cosine of 0 is 1, so our answer is 1,000. And the units, remember, all units of energy are always going to be in joules. And finally, we're going to be looking at power. Okay, so basically for power, it's pretty simple. All it is just work over time. Okay, so work over time, the units of that would be joules over seconds, and this would also be known as a watt. Okay, so the watts, similar to light bulbs, they put the energy in power, which is watts, and in joules per second, otherwise known as joules per second. Okay. So we're not going to be doing an example here, but you can imagine what they may ask. They can just ask you, they can give you a amount of work that was exerted, and then give you amount of time that work was exerted in, and then ask you to find the power. Okay, so power is pretty simple. It can't get too complicated as long as you know how to solve the work problems.
If you like our videos, be sure to check out our website, Mcatforme.com. The videos accompany our free MCAT course syllabus for a 3-month study plan. We have the books you should use, the homeworks to do, videos to watch, and chapters to read. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel. We'll have new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Thank you.